Ready to begin? Okay, good evening. I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is Wednesday, March 31st, 2021, and we are meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. And at this time, I'd like to excuse Mrs. Clarine Arnold, who is not able to be with us this evening. So with that, I'd like to welcome those that are here in person, as well as those that are joining us on the live stream. And thank you for being here with us this evening. The first item is to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting. I will ask for a motion. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve the agenda for today, March 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. We will now be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by BJ Weller, Director of Responsive Services.
Thank you. Please stand. Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. I always am grateful that we take a moment to stand together with that. The next item on our agenda are patron comments, and we have not had any patrons sign up to address us either in person or by telephone. So we will now move to the consent agenda, and I will ask for a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda. And please, in making that motion, will you list and read the individual items on that section?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda on the March 31st, 2020 agenda. Item 5 on the consent agenda, 5A, approval of minutes for March 16th, 2021. B, approval of purchasing bids. C, approval of student overnight travel. And D, approval of hire and termination reports.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I will ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. So next on the agenda is item 6A, Board Strategic Vision Consultant Selection and Approval of Purchase Bid. And this is action required or requested. And so with that, I would just like to introduce this, that the board and the district administration has assisted the board in putting out a request for proposals for a bid for a consultant to assist the board as we move forward in our strategic planning and visioning process that we've talked about on a couple of occasions. And those bids have come in, and the board has reviewed the bids and is recommending that we award a contract to Education Elements. And the memo with the specifics on that is available on board docs. And so with that, I will ask board members if they have any comments or anything they would like to say regarding this item. I believe on board docs, it should be on the item 6A. Let's verify that that has been posted. Did you? Let's just wait a minute and verify. All right, okay, thank you. All right, Mrs. Oaks?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple comments with regard to the choice with education elements, as well as the board's choice to be able to hire someone in this capacity. I think it's a very familiar adage for a lot of us that when you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And as a board, we feel very strongly about the importance of making sure that we're leading this district in this next stage into a solid direction, and one that all of the public feels comfortable with, that they're getting the opportunity to be able to provide input and perspective and express their desires about what they want, as well as looking at what education trends are and where we're headed. And so I was able to participate on the committee that looked at the RFP proposals, and that was a great process. We had a lot of solid companies come in and propose to be able to have this opportunity, but the one that we chose ultimately, I think, will be a fantastic fit for our district, in part because they're really determined to make sure that this is our process, that they're not coming in with a preconceived idea from outside about what our community should do, but rather making sure that they're working with our staff and with our stakeholders to make sure that we are creating something that we feel like is representative of what Canyons District wants to be, and as well as representing the strengths. We've come so far. We have such a solid foundation, and that was something that this company really recognized and highlighted, and they see a lot of strengths, and they're excited to make sure that we become a lighthouse district. And that was part of the conversation we had with them. So I just want to reiterate my thanks to Gary Hansen and those on the staff that made this process so fair and objective. And I was very impressed by how professional it was.
Thank you. Other comments? Mrs. Schill?
I just want to add, I was also on the subcommittee that looked at this, and I'm just really excited for this opportunity for our district. We're going to hold stakeholder meetings and get input from all of our stakeholders, parents, teachers, administrators, even city officials, and anyone in the community will be invited to these meetings. And we're going to get input and look at our vision, our mission statements, and also setting goals. And also really important to me is a strategic plan that we can move toward. And I'm just excited for this opportunity. And I think educational elements will be great to partner with us in this endeavor.
Thank you. Mrs. Oaks and then Mrs. Nightbauer.
Sorry, one more thing that I forgot. Anyone who's actually listening to tonight's meeting or later has an opportunity, I just want to get this out to the public. This is your chance to be able to provide your perspective of what you really want for your child's education. And there will be many surveys and opportunities to engage with members of the board and staff and education elements to provide your perspective, both in person and electronically. So I just want to put this out there. If you have any opinions whatsoever about your kids' education, here's your chance. This is the opportunity, and this is where we really want the public to become really engaged and part of the process. And this is just kind of the very beginning.
Thank you. Mrs. Nightbauer?
Thank you for that last comment too. I'm excited about the opportunity to be innovative as we look towards the future, and the scaffolding and the strategic plan and the vision that we'll provide after our collaboration with parents and families, stakeholders, and really excited for this gathering of perspectives. I think all decisions are made best when we really listen to the different perspectives of both teachers and parents and educators. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be very innovative. And I think that we can prepare for the future by being purposeful in what we're doing. So I'm really excited. And if we probably should have the website maybe somewhere of the consultant group. I was really, really impressed when I read about their 6 rules for work and teaming and planning, and so that might be a good thing to have on the website for parents to check out as well, because I think this consultant group is great with innovation and helping us harness ideas from everyone.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, I just want to also say that I'm excited about this process, and I feel like this will enhance Canyons District. We're not looking to replace or undo anything, but we're looking to move forward into the future, strong and vibrant, and doing it the Canyons way, which, as you all have mentioned, includes input and perspective of all stakeholders. So if there's no further comment, this is an action requested item, so I will call for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the board strategic vision consultant selection and approval of the purchase bid.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Oh, that motion passes. Thank you. Next item is item 6B, Canyons Online 2021-2022. This is a second reading with possible action, and I will turn the time over to Superintendent Rick Robbins and Dr. Amber Roderick Landward, Director of ISD.
Thank you, President Tini. Before we move on to Canyons Online, I'd just like to thank the board and congratulate the board as well as Ed Elements on the consultant selection, and also Gary Hansen and Leon Wilcox that handled the process through the RFP. As mentioned, it was very competitive and a lot of great competing bids. So congratulations to all. It's very exciting to see that work move forward. And as mentioned, part of that work in the current strategic vision is innovation, as well as one of the working groups that the board has assembled to further study that will be included in that vision. And that's really where I see Canyons Online fitting into this. I think it's just super exciting that the board is considering this next step in providing resources and a service to our students to meet their needs in their place and their pace. And this is really at the heart of what personalized learning can be. And I think, thinking about coming out of COVID and the pandemic, one of the things that, and we talked about this last time, one of the things that we've learned is that in-person instruction for the vast majority of our students is a priority. However, with that, we've also learned that there are many students that thrive in the online environment, and for us to be more responsive to their needs, there is this space or this place for a blended model, which I think is terrific. So I want to start with, if you recall from our roundtable discussion, as we started thinking about the future, I want to start with this quote, and then just a couple other things, and then I'll invite Amber up. But I want to go back to President Kennedy's speech and just highlight a short piece of that speech he gave in 1962 in Texas. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in the decade and to do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too. And to me, that really captures the essence and the spirit of this next step that we're talking about. And it will look much different than what we've previously done in Canyon School District. And, I appreciate all of the great efforts in the past that have been done to provide this flexibility. But we've also learned that there's a way for us to even improve there. So Canyons Online really offers us that opportunity to act on these principles of innovation that the board is currently sustaining and developing through the strategic vision process. We will be able to grow and expand these opportunities that meet students' needs where they are at in their own place and pace, as mentioned. Students and families will have even greater flexibility and choice in customizing what is best for their students in their experience, at the same time while staying connected to their neighborhood schools. And I think in the Canyons Online program that we're proposing to the board, that is an element that makes it very unique, is that our students will be able to experience all the above and really customize their plan with their neighborhood school that we know in Canyons is a very powerful relationship. The online experience can then be utilized as an additional learning support or potential remediation or credit recovery, as well as can also be utilized for acceleration to give students and families the flexibility that they might need in their schedule, especially for our secondary students. And this is really central to student productivity and what personalized learning can be. It's also a program shift. I think it's really important for everyone out there to understand is that we're really changing the dynamics of what this looks like. The first is that we're really moving away from COVID response to a long-term sustainable service model for our students. We're still very ready to deal with COVID if we have that situation occur in the fall like we did last year. But this is thinking much different about how we provide flexible online learning to students. It's also really moving away from an independent learning model, an independent student learning model to a much higher level of engagement with teachers and staff. And what that looks like is that we will have, we're proposing full-time online teachers in Canyons Online, as well as adjunct teachers at the high school level to pick up those necessary courses for our students. And so the goal there is to really build a much stronger sense of community and belonging in the online environment. And where in the past, we pretty much had to separate the online environment from the in-person altogether. In this proposal and the future, it's a blended model. So even with our elementary students, as you'll see in Amber's presentation, there are elements to that allow students to gather and be in person as well as experiencing the online environment. We also have this golden opportunity, as you know, we're in our second round of ESSER funds that is targeted for recovery. And part of that opportunity is funds can be utilized in this way. So it really gives the board and the district an opportunity with very low impact on general program to almost pilot this program out in a way that we can look at those measurables, whether it's completion rates or enrollments or the types of courses that the board and the community would like to see our students have. But we can measure that growth over that ebb and flow over the next few years without impacting general program and FTE. And so I think that's just an awesome opportunity in that lab space to really get this right out of the gate. And then over time, the board would have the ability to look at that and then make a determination on what kind of impact that would have on general program. It would also provide the board the opportunity in the future to potentially expand the program to full status as a regular school, or even potentially create some type of online charter within the district if the board chose to do so. But it would give the board great flexibility to continue to really meet the spirit of innovation in Canyon School District that's been a mainstay here. And then the last piece I'd like to talk about real quick is the community engagement part. I know in the last board meeting, we talked about potentially surveying and trying to understand the interest level. As a staff, one of the things that we felt was important, and Amber can talk to this when she talks about this piece, is that surveying in the current model may skew people's idea about what online learning might be. If they're really right now, the experience has been in COVID response, where what we're proposing will look much different. And so we'd like to follow some of the models that are utilized in our charter schools and other LEAs utilize this model, and that is to create info meetings for our public and our parents and our community and our students to really come in and just learn with us and gather as much information as they need about the program for us to gauge that interest. And that would give us the basis to go forward. Remember from our last meeting, we're talking about 50 students per grade level to start. I think on our end, it would be wise to start small and then build out. We are in a position that if we have a run on enrollment that we can expand that. But considering that we're looking at it more in terms of a pilot to make sure that we get it off the ground right, and with the right training for our teachers, is that we would propose that we start a little bit smaller and then build out. But we would also record these information meetings and these as a webcast, or a way that people then could go on and look at the information to understand what the Canyons online experience might look like. So with that, Amber's going to come up and get into more of the details from some of the questions last time, and then I'd be happy to answer questions, or Amber can help with that as well. And I want to tell Amber, she's coming up, just how much I appreciate her and her team for their work on this, handing this off to her to really help develop it, and Michelle Shimon as well has been a heavy lift, but I'm just more than excited to hopefully see this get off the ground soon. So Amber.
Thank you, Rick, and good evening, everybody. We appreciate you meeting this extra time so that we can talk about some of the important things that are on tonight's agenda. I know it's a lot of work for you all, and I just appreciate your dedication and leadership. So Rick gave a pretty good overview of the work that we've been doing since we last met, and really the excitement and innovation that we hope to continue with this program. As Rick mentioned, personalized learning is something that we've talked about a lot over the last year with COVID and what we've experienced. And the key elements of personalized learning include looking at that student choice, student voice, thinking about the pace of instruction and the place of instruction. And as he mentioned, we have a history of integrating these elements into a number of pathways and programs that we have for our students to get to that college and career readiness. And this graphic highlights those that have been in existence, and then adds, you can see at the top, Canyons Online being an additional pathway of personalized learning to get to that place. So we wanted to just give that visual of where it's nested in the bigger picture of Canyons, and as he mentioned, hope for the future. So Canyons Online is a program that is for you and about you. And this is how we're going to continue to sell it for our students. People in Canyon School District, our patrons, students, and parents alike, have gotten used to a level of excellence that they can expect from Canyon School District, and our Canyons Online program would be no different. We'll continue with that excellence that they are used to, but add the levels of innovation based on the learning that we've collected over the last year with the pandemic to make the program better than any in the state. And we're really excited about this opportunity. When we met last time, was that a week ago, 2 weeks ago? You had asked for more specifics around how our students that are in the online program will be able to connect to their neighborhood school. And at the elementary level, Rick again alluded to these pieces, so I'll just go through them really quickly. But our elementary students will still have the opportunity to connect to their before and after school music programs. We will work with the schools if the students choose to or would like to participate in the science fair or the school debate. Those will also be options in the online program. But if students would rather participate as their neighborhood school with their neighborhood school for those types of activities, they would be welcome to do so. At the middle school level, students enrolled in the online program would have the opportunity, if they so wished, to enroll in elective courses at their neighborhood school. There would not necessarily be a guarantee that they would get every elective that they requested. It would again be schedule dependent and what the student was looking at in terms of his or her schedule in conjunction with the online courses. So there would be some flexibility there, but again, not being able to 100% guarantee every elective. And then of course, just like the elementary school, if the students enrolled in the online program would prefer to join their local school science fair or debate, they would be able to do that, or they could do it with their online peers instead. The high school model would be similar to what we have been doing. So our students would be dual enrolled. So they'd be taking classes both at the high school or online. And so they would have full access to what the high school is offering in terms of extracurricular electives and those components. We also talked a little bit about the application process. And when we met 2 weeks ago, I had suggested that we were really looking at an application process to try to make sure that we were identifying the needs of our students to be able to support them to be successful. And we were thinking that the application process and really digging in and meeting with families prior to acceptance would be the most equitable. After we met with you all, we pulled together a committee of principals and district staff to really flesh out what that would look like. And as we did that, of course, the devil's in the details, right? We realized that the process of having an application, and we weren't able to distill really clean cut criteria, which then makes it very tough to be equitable and defensible in this type of program, especially if we're not able to admit every single person that wants to get into the program. So we backed up and looked at what really made the most sense for gauging interest, gauging need, and being able to be equitable for the students who want access to this particular program for the elementary and middle school grades. And so what you see here are the steps that we think would make the most sense. So the first thing that we would do is get the information out and allow families to express their interest and sign up for our targeted communication list. So this will give us an idea of just how many folks are even thinking about it and allow us to provide more targeted communication to those folks who have expressed an interest. This would of course be in addition to ongoing regular communication blasts and campaigns, as we have done in the past with previous programs. We'd then invite families to information nights, as Rick suggested, where they could get their questions answered. We could provide more specifics in terms of the supports, in terms of the curriculum, in terms of the instruction, and walk them through the process for applying to the program. We would then open a registration window for approximately 2 weeks. And during that time, families who are interested would submit an application similar to the way that they do with dual immersion, kindergarten, SALTA. And then we would run a random lottery the same way that we do for dual immersion for the number of spots that we have available. And as Rick said, we're looking at starting small at about 50 students per grade in the 3 through 8 program, but we would have the potential flexibility to expand if we needed to and thought that it was pertinent to do so. Once we run the lottery, we would inform the families that the student has been selected via that lottery process and invite them to officially enroll. We would also anticipate that there may be a wait list at this time. Once we have the students officially enrolled, it's at that point, then we would immediately start working on that outreach to identify those individual needs of the students who have elected to join this program so that we can make sure that we are lining up the supports available. You'll see in a slide coming up that we have allocated for a special education teacher. So at this time, we'd again look at what those IEPs are. We'd be working with the teacher that we hired. We'd identify any students who are on a 504 who need language services and figure out what the best way to provide those services would be for the students, in addition to any other needs that they might have. So this will give us an opportunity to, right out of the gate, start working with the families and identify the needs of our students so that we can further personalize. So that's a little bit different of a process than we had talked about last time. And again, we felt like this process was more equitable and more defensible in the end. So are there any questions? Okay. Go ahead, Mont.
You know, I understand building it small and expanding it. I could see this model being a very popular thing to have happen. Is there a limit to the number of students you can handle in a virtual classroom? And
Well-
how quickly can we grow this to meet demand?
That is a very good question. I think that that's the challenge with this type of program in this type of environment is it's just really tough to know for certain. We are fortunate that we have the additional ESSERS funding and potentially more on the way that gives us that flexibility to grow the program without harming the school's current FTE. But that would be something that we'd really have to map out over the next couple of years in terms of sustainability. Because if those students are entering this program, they're leaving the brick and mortar program, which has an impact on the school ultimately. And this year, with the ESSERS funding, we'll be able to have that not have as much of an impact in terms of losing teachers because of enrollment at the brick and mortar schools. But moving forward, I think we'd want to really be strategic and think that through. And it would be harder to accept students ongoing, at least in the 3 through 8 program, where they're less likely to dual enroll without having a strategy in place ahead of time.
Will this also be available for students outside of our district?
For the 3 through 8 program, right now we would prioritize the students in our district. And then I think, as Rick mentioned, it's something that we would want to look at for the future if this is something we want to use to attract more students. So students,
To that point, I think it's important to, so for high school students to begin with as a program, they could open enroll, but they would have to open enroll through one of our local high schools. If the board felt like, you know, over time, as we monitor this progress, if you wanted to establish it as a school, then we could change that dynamic where they could open enroll directly into the school. So yes, but it would, at this point, it would be, they would open enroll into one of our high schools and then access the online component, right? Yeah, and we're doing that. That's right. We're open enrollment now, right? So
But you could increase revenues from enrolling
Yeah,
students
yes.
outside of the district.
yes.
yeah, for high school students outside of our district are already enrolling in our online courses. But for the 3 through 8 program, starting up this year, we would recommend that that's for our in-district students.
Okay, so I had a parent call me with a middle schooler and they have concerns, like health concerns with family members. So they want to go online in the fall. So are those type of situations given any preference, or will they just be in the lottery? So
They'll
we
just
don't
be in the
know?
lottery. As of right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's just maybe a consideration to think about because I think there are those people out there that
It's a good point.
might have that. Anyway, okay, thank you.
So looking at some potential preferences, is that what you're thinking?
At least for health reasons.
Okay.
Mr. Wrigley and then Mrs. Oates.
Sure.
Oh, just Mr. Wrigley, sorry. Mrs. Knight.
Okay. All right. First off, I'm excited about this proposal. I think it's a real good, strong way to go. I have a couple questions about it, though. First off, will students in this program be able to go at their own pace, even to the case we're not going to cane them by education keeps people 14 to 15, 16 to 18, 17, 18. If you're in this program and you're able to complete the coursework, like at a college or Western State, can we move them forward? If
So-
that's the case, if the parents want that.
Really great question. And so what Rick and I and the team have discussed is that we would follow the same procedure that we would in a brick and mortar school for acceleration. So if a student would like to accelerate beyond their grade level in terms of pushing through that work, we would follow that same process. So give them an opportunity to experience the program at their current grade level and then work through the process if that's something that they would want to do to accelerate.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting option to actually, when we talk about pace, be truly saying, we're gonna allow you to go at your own pace, as long as you're able to do the work, and we're not gonna hold you back. So we could have somebody graduate high school at 15. Probably theoretically could now, you know, Doogie Howser, anyway, there's them old movie things. The other question is we've had an online program. Is that the current online education program, is that going down? And this is replacing it, or is this going to
The
be?
current online COVID response program?
No, the current online we had
CVHS.
before for the CVS or,
This will replace CVHS.
okay, so how many people are in that program currently?
We're going to get to that.
Okay, so the question I have on this is my concern would be what percentage currently with COVID? My concern is we've lost about 2% of the students in our district, and other districts are hemorrhaging more. Parents who like this type of program, who go ahead and say, okay, I want to get in, we only have 50 and we actually need 100. Those other 50 will go to another district, or well, probably will go to another online program, and we'll lose them and may not get them back. So we got a good model, but I'm really worried about us if we don't have an overall program, especially for high school, that they could continue to go to, that they say, hey, I like online. You've given it to me. I like it. I want to continue it. And if you can't offer it, I'll go someplace else, because the legislature continues to pump money into online schools. So our competition is just going out the roof on online. So this is a good step towards that. What are we going to do with that population? Do we know how many currently? Well, we've gone back and forth, but currently right now, how many kids do we have online through our district?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I could
I
certainly
didn't expect
look
you
when
to,
I'm finished.
but it'd be interesting to know that we have, 12%, 15% of our students online, to see if those parents want to continue online. And then if we come up another program that's got 2%, we're gonna expect to lose those parents to some other program. So I'm concerned about that. I know it's how difficult it is to put this online. We want to do a pilot, but I don't want to lose the revenue from the district, because they won't go back if the parents say they want to go online. They won't go back to brick and mortar. We'll lose them. We'll go to someplace else, and they may then stay.
So just a reminder, the 3 through 8 program is the one that we're keeping at 50, but we have the ability to expand if we need to. The high school program will continue. It just will not be CVHS. It will be Canyons Online.
Okay, so the high school and the middle school will.
Yes. Yes.
So we're
we
only
will
worried
have a
about
program for
looking
all
on how
3
many
levels.
kids would be currently online with the elementary that the parents want them to go, and compare that against what we're offering. If we're offering 2% and we have 15%, we may need to take a look at that.
And high school will not be a limit, just the 3rd through 8th grade,
Okay.
because that's the new.
Okay, so that's
the
a
new
good
school
that's a good
program.
clarification for me. The high school, middle schools.
Amber will get- quick. So just the numbers over the last, I looked at that data that you're talking about. So
Mhm.
I think online, we started out this year in COVID response between 6,000 and 7,000 kids online. and that's dwindled down, right? A lot of those kids have come back in person. The CVHS enrollment numbers, and Amber will get to this. This year, it more than doubled. I believe we were right around like 4,000 plus students in CVHS. In the previous 3 years, I think we were around 2,000 to 2,500. So in my mind, somewhere around the 2,500 number would be a place to start, right, in how we staff it. But I'm in agreement. At the high school level, we're not setting any limits on that, and we'll grow that as rapidly.
And this will be a far greater
we need
program
to.
than we've had, and this
Yes.
for the high school, and we never had it for the middle school before, correct? So now we're going, that'll be outstanding. We're not gonna lose anybody there. So the only issue then would be is where we're gonna be in the elementary as compared to where our parents are gonna say. It'd be interesting to ask them to say, if we don't give this to her, you don't get in this lottery, are you out of here? Because I just don't want to lose any more. Because
Yeah, and
that affects our brick and mortar.
I would say when we get these, when we start to do these meetings with our parents to gauge that interest, I mean, we can, once we get the registration open and we really get in, get the wheels turning, because I'm with you, like I want us to be able to compete in that market and actually bring students in to Canyons. And I think what we'll present to our students and families, we're going to be able to compete, and as fast as it can go, to be attractive, not just to our own students first, but expand it as best we can, but at the same time keeping at least the parameters in place that we can grow it appropriately and fund it appropriately. So
Yeah, okay. I think especially to get through third grade through eighth, that's gonna be fantastic. I have had some people from kindergarten, second grade, why aren't we doing it? And I've told them it doesn't seem to work, but we may want to clarify that. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Nybauer and then Mrs. Oaks.
I was going to wait till your presentation was done before commenting, but since others started in, I thought, well, I do have just a few comments about the first few slides. First off, I want to thank you. You've engaged me. This is enticing. I think all of the board comments talking about, gosh, well, we're going to have a bigger interest, we're limiting it. I think you've done a good job of enticing, and it's exciting. A couple of things I would love to see. I love the neighborhood school connections. I think that's a big part of what we have to offer. I'd love to see that bolstered more in depth and detailed, such as, before and after school, or you said music, but, orchestra and choir, the Great American Project. A lot of our elementary schools have that. I'd love to see more details because there's a lot of neat things going on at our neighborhood schools, and just ask our elementary school principals, could you give me some details and have that on that slide? Because it's kind of exciting when we can see all that we have to offer that way. I think the beginning, my comment this way is kind of what Steve was thinking. When I read that, hey, it's your choice in the pace and place, right? I'm really engaged now. This is really exciting. I would maybe caution us to be careful if we're going to advertise that it's your pace. I don't know that the current way we address students that need to be advanced is maybe, how do I say this? It may be a little bit of a slower process to get that pace the way we need it to be. And so I think that we need to look at, if we're doing it online, your pace, we can back that up with maybe a quicker process for students to be able to go at their pace. And maybe that's something that's offered at the beginning, and there isn't so many checkpoints, because usually that takes a year of data and teacher, consultation and quite a few things at the district level. And so I'd be interested to see that different than what it is at our brick and mortar school.
Can I clarify a bit
Yes.
of that? So when we're talking about accelerating, grade acceleration would follow that same process that we have at the brick and mortar school, and that's what I was referring to. But the students will have flexibility in their pace within the program. So
Okay.
a student can move forward within the current pacing and curriculum.
Okay.
In most cases, with each subject, they can move forward. at their own pace.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. And I think that's great. It might be nice for us to clarify that with
That's a
the
good point.
pace, because when I see that, and maybe I have some learners that are advanced, I immediately think, wow, what these options are limitless. So I think clarification
That's
might
great.
be good. I was really excited with this slide, personalized learning pathways. I love that this is a pathway that Canyons provides, but it's an online pathway. I'd just like us to consider possibly the name Canyons Pathways Online, because we're going to be providing, right? There's many pathways for students to succeed, and this is the online pathway. Just something to consider. And I know Steve in our last meeting was saying, let's make sure the name has some appeal, right? So something like that is what he said. Then the last comment, and maybe actually I'm going to save this till the end.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I think Mrs. Oaks would like to hear more of your presentation before commenting.
Okay.
And I just want to just insert here. So it's about that idea of pace. And thank you for clarifying that that's different than grade advancement.
Yes.
And grade level advancement is pretty strictly governed by statute and state
And
board
policy.
rules. So,
Mhm.
so we don't have as much flexibility there as we would within a course of how fast a student would want to go through a particular course and open up time for more courses if it's high school, or more time to go deeper into a content area if it's the K or the 3-8 program.
Yes.
So,
And
thank
I
you.
think that you're absolutely right. We need to make sure that that is crystal clear in the application process and the frequently asked questions and all the documentation. Nancy, I think it was you who had asked for some background information on CVHS in terms of staffing and what our plans are moving forward. So what you have here is the current CVHS organizational chart. So this represents the number of part-time teachers. Remember, the teachers that are currently working for CVHS are teaching in addition to their full-time contract in a regular comprehensive high school. So you can see the breakdown of the number of teachers, the number of staff, and where they fall in terms of supporting the program. In the bubble on the left, where it talks about the number of teachers within a content or a curriculum area, that represents the number of courses within that content, not necessarily the number of teachers. And so that's why you have the box on top with the actual numbers of teachers, because some teachers are teaching multiple courses. So there are quite a few part-time teachers and then support staff that make CVHS run. And then I just have a note there that not all of the folks that are in this organization chart are paid for out of CVHS budget, but the high majority are. You had also asked for data around the course completion and what we have so far. And in talking with Principal Bettger, who's been the administrator over the program for the last couple of years, and some of her team, this has been one of the challenges that they have had in terms of how they're able to pull the data, submit it through UTREX, what goes to the state, what we have to make decisions. And so there's they have a lot of suggestions for moving forward with Canyons Online, how we can make our data collection system much better. So the data that we have is the data that we have, and I'll just leave it at that. What you have right here is the data that is submitted to the state, because CVHS is a current SOEP provider. So that means that we are allowing students who are outside of our district to enroll for credit. We do get some funding for that to be able to support that process. This data represents mostly those SOEP students. And what Principal Bettger was explaining to me is that the completion rate often matches the pass rate, because if they don't pass, they typically withdraw, or we don't really know. So this shows the data that, again, was uploaded from UTREX. which we have some questions whether or not the state pulled from the UTREX data accurately. So that's one side of the data. What we then looked at is the current course completion data, and this represents what Dr. Robbins was talking about in terms of the number of courses that have doubled since COVID. So we were only able to pull back for the last 2 years, and this table represents the number of courses that have completed, the courses that have been withdrawn, and then the number of courses that are still active. These are courses, not students. So drilling down to get to the number of unique students isn't a quick process. So we can get that eventually, but as I mentioned, we've Principal Becker and her team, and we've been working with Tori Gillette, who works with the counselors, and they all have lots of ideas about how we can improve our data collection system moving forward so that we have better data readily available to make ongoing decisions. So the data from the 2019-2020 school year, we had about 5,000 courses that were completed, a little more. When a student withdraws from a course, right now our system does not code the reason why. So often it could be that a student withdraws because they registered for the wrong course. They registered for first quarter when really they needed second quarter. They registered for secondary 2 when really they needed secondary 1. Or they could have gotten into the course and decided that they didn't really have time in their schedule to complete it like they thought, or maybe it was too hard online, so they decided to take it in person, and then they just withdrew. They are supposed to submit an official withdraw, but that doesn't always happen. And so the system is supposed to then drop them if they have not been active across 2 sessions. So those are some pieces, again, that would be worth looking at in the future in terms of being able to code why a student withdraws or doesn't. As Dr. Robbins mentioned, we have seen quite an increase in terms of the number of students who are participating, and therefore the number of courses that have been students have been involved in. So right now, as of right before the board meeting started, because we wanted to have the data 100% to the moment, we had 8,517 courses that have been completed since July of last year. And then you can see the number of students who have withdrawn. These may be students who have chosen to go back to in-person or for whatever reason, like I mentioned earlier. And then we still have nearly 3,000 courses that are currently active. Should I keep going? Okay. So the big question, and I think several of you asked about what is this all going to cost us, and in comparison to what we are currently funding for CVHS. So we've outlined this budget. What you see highlighted in red are the funds that we would propose. We use our ESSERS funding so that we can have that cushion to plan and be flexible with how we are restructuring the program this year and take advantage of that opportunity that we have been given. And then we can move forward with some more sustainable funding options once we see how this trial year goes with the 3 through 8 and it not being quite as intense of a COVID situation. So we have an administrator that has already been funded and hired. You met Michelle Shemin at the last board meeting. We have 13 full-time instructors that would be coming out of ESSERS funding. That includes 1 full-time special education teacher, probably at least 10 adjunct instructors. And Michelle is working with the team and some really great consultants into how this model will look a little bit different than the current CVH model, because again, we want to push that innovation and make sure that the quality of instruction in terms of what folks have come to expect with Canyons remain that high quality in our online program. We'll be hiring a full-time counselor with ESSER funds, and then we have a number of our support staff that will, at least those positions, will maintain as part of the program. The next item on the agenda is the curriculum adoption. So we're moving towards a new curriculum for this program specifically. So setting aside, we estimated high for that just to be safe. And then the professional development for the teachers, which is something we are committed to doing. If we're restructuring, we really want to make sure that our staff who are hired for this program have all the training they need to be successful. And then with more full-time online teachers, we will need more technology setups for them to be successful wherever they might be teaching. So you can see that moving forward, we're looking at about a $2.5 million price tag. $680,000 of that will come from the existing CVH budget, which is half of what the current CVH budget is ish. And then we will use the majority of this startup year from ESSERS. And that's it.
Okay, Mrs. Oaks and then Mrs. Nybauer.
Amber, thank you. And thank you, Rick, and all your staff that's been working on this. I am really excited about this, actually. I think COVID, for as rotten as it's been in many different respects, has been a great opportunity for us to learn a lot of things about our weaknesses, about our strengths. One of the things that we heard a lot from parents from since the fall is how they were expecting Canyon's virtual high school to be something that it wasn't. It's not an instructional model where a teacher comes on and really teaches directly. It's something that you have to be really self-motivated and teach yourself. And I've had kids that have engaged with it, some more successfully than others. I have a really motivated student that finally came to me with her math class and just said, Mom, I cannot teach myself like this. But so in answer to Steve's question about Canyon's virtual versus what they're working on and working towards, this is a significantly better model. And it's going to actually have better retention rates with the students than what we're seeing with CVHS, in part because, and I've looked very closely at ASU Prep and I've been looking at Edmentum and I'm very impressed with both of those. The instructional model is different. Just because we put a teacher who's always taught in a brick and mortar classroom online doesn't mean that that's going to be a successful experience. ASU Prep in particular really goes to a lot of effort of making sure that their teachers are successfully prepared to teach online in that kind of instructional model. And so the kids that engage in those classes do much, much better than I think that we've seen with CVHS. And it's not to say it's any fault of the district. I think it served a purpose when it was introduced. But now that we're in the environment that we are, and we've just survived the year that we have to evolve to something different. And I think it's going to be a significant improvement and evolution for all of us. So I'm really excited. Thank you. I know there's a lot of work coming, but I think this will be a wonderful contribution to what we have to offer students.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you, Mrs. Nybauer, and then Mr. Wrigley.
Okay. Couple questions. So in the staffing, you're saying 13 full-time instructors, that's teachers, is that correct?
Correct.
And 10 adjunct instructors. So we're
Give-
going to have,
give or take.
okay, so we're going to have 23 teachers. We're going to have 50 kids per 3rd through 8th grade and unlimited in the high school. My first concern is that that is not enough teachers for the number of students. I did have a son participate in driver's ed with CVHS. I came in one day and he was doing this module where the circle was traveling around, and if it was about to bump into the outer lines of the square, he was supposed to move it. And I was thinking, what is that? This doesn't look like a game you'd be interested in playing. It was part of driver's ed talking about how you needed to have full attention on the road. And he had to complete, I don't know how many hours of these attention exercises. But there is a need for new curriculum. I see you have the $500,000 for annual licenses for adopted digital curriculum. Have we vetted these? This is we've vetted these as a new curriculum.
That's what's on the next agenda item.
The next item, okay. All right, so this, and we'll talk about how that vetting process has happened, and okay. I know I feel like we are trying to kind of quickly get this to go through for this next year because we have a need, right? We have kids that are online and we want to provide something. I understand that need, and I understand that there's other districts doing it. The one concern I do have is because we are reinventing, it is no longer going to be CVHS. It's this new, this new model, this new form. Um, I am a little concerned about if we have enough time and enough time to vet and to make sure that our processes are well played out in order to roll this out, because it feels a little bit like we've got one shot, we're redoing this, we're doing it now because we have a need right now. And what if I, as a mother, participate and my children do, and I think, there's these other online platforms, and really we're just beginning, and I know we're going to grow, right? And it's going to shift a little bit in form. But my concern is if we have vetted things enough to roll out something strong so that people's initial experience is positive enough that they don't say, didn't work for me, I'm going to go somewhere else. And this is a hard question because I know it's a pressing need right now, but I feel like it's really important to make sure that what we deliver is excellent. Not that your planning hasn't been excellent, it has, but we're kind of under this little time pressure. So what are your thoughts on that?
So really good question. And I can see why it feels like it is a short timeline. So a couple of things. We have been researching online practices for more than a year now because of even before the pandemic, moving into the future. So I think that we've done a very thorough job outlining from the research and the evidence what best practices in online learning looks like. We had the benefit of having this whole year as a test kitchen for what has worked and what hasn't. We've been collecting ongoing parent input from the get-go, formally and informally through that process. If you recall, I think it was in October, we were about a quarter in, and we were getting a lot of feedback, if you remember, from our parents who were participating in online, and many suggestions of programs across the country that would be worth exploring. And our team dug into all of those programs and outlined what they were doing really well that we weren't, and what we were doing better, or what we could look at and kind of put aside for the future when we get to this point. We also held a steering committee of teachers who were teaching online and in person, as well as administrators at all levels, to really start thinking beyond COVID, what would a quality online program look like that is different from now? So all of these things have been happening in anticipation of what if, and do we want to continue this differently after COVID? So while we've just been talking about it formally for a couple of meetings, we really started gathering that feedback and talking about it in the summer, and very heightened in the early fall when we started implementing our current COVID response. So I think that we feel confident in the information that we've gathered. It's not to say that anytime you start a brand new program, as we have learned with dual immersion, kindergarten, shifts and SALTA, new schools, there's continued learning along the way, which is where I'm grateful for this open dialogue and the commitment to community input, so that we can make those adjustments as we go if we need to. Yes, please.
To your point, Holly, I think that's well taken. And in a lot of ways, I think one of the things that the board, just being very frank about this, when I came here as superintendent, is that you're putting your trust in me to help make that decision, right? And so I feel like it has been thoroughly thought through, considering what we've learned from last year to this year. That's your responsibility and purview to hold me accountable to that. And this is a space that I've been in, that I'm familiar with. And the timing, I feel like we're in a place where the timing is right to move forward with this. And we will get it right. I have no doubt about that. The difference in the way that we're structuring really a high touch point, high engagement type of online learning experience. I think we're all kind of paralyzed by, as Jeff likes to call it, COVID vortex, right? And what that means. And we're coming out of that, and it will look much different. We've been very responsive to a pandemic, And now we're moving out of that. And I see this model as something that it really will. It's one part, I think people get this confused with that online learning is personalized learning. It's only a small part to a much bigger philosophy about meeting students' needs where they're at. And that includes whole child, that's mental health. I mean, it really is providing flexibility and responsiveness to each individual student. And comparing that to our response during COVID and the fact that CVHS has, for its time, has served its purpose, but it's very driven by independent learning. And that's the difference, is that moving forward, this is an environment that's high engagement with a teacher, with curriculum that I'm very familiar with, that I trust 1,000%, that is from a major research university, that is in this field, that believes and has the same vision. And so I think, as it grows, I'm probably more in line with Mont's worry about this, like really taking off fast, right? And just the sheer staffing that it will require, but that's a good problem to have. I mean, we can work through that. And for me, at the end of the day, not just serving our students, but it will be attractive to other students, around the state and from all over the place.
And when you say you're familiar with the curriculum,
I've worked with ASU PD
Okay.
for the last few years. Yeah.
great,
So
thank you. One other question I had, with our funds, using our ESSERS funds of
Yes.
1.87, how do we sustain that next year when we don't have the ESSERS funds?
So we're expecting, at least, there is, as you might know, there has been a new stimulus package passed. So we're expecting another round of federal support, I think through 2023. So it'll actually be much more this time. I know no comment on that, but there's more support coming, right? So, but we've also signaled to our principals that this is on ESSER funds, and that we really will monitor this and measure, as I mentioned, it is more, and maybe pilot's not the right word, but we really are in a phase that we can monitor progress and adjust. But as that ebbs and flows, yes, that will have an impact on general program, but we can prepare for it, versus without ESSER funds this year. For us to launch this, we're taking funds directly out of general program, which would mean FTE from schools, because those students would be leaving, coming over. This way, we can really monitor that progress. We can pilot it out at least 1, maybe 2 or more years. And then by that time, we know exactly how many students have been in the program, and then the board can make those decisions.
Great, thank you. You answered all my questions. The only one remaining is just, and maybe this is something the other board members would be interested in, is just seeing a little more about those 23 teachers and how we plan to disperse them with the students. Because having been a teacher, that is a concern I have for the volume of kids you'd be.
And this would really be as I mentioned, the $680,000 that we would be taking from the current CVHS budget really is about half of what the current budget is. So we do have some flexibility with the current CVH budget, as well as the additional stimulus package, that we could add more teachers if we needed to. So we went a little conservative, again, with that flexibility as we start mapping out those pieces to really define the exact number of teachers for both adjunct and full-time. And Michelle's looking at a couple of really innovative models right now for the adjunct instructor piece to be able to support the difference in pace for students. And so that in itself might look a little bit different in terms of how we even define those teachers. So I guess what I'm saying is 10 is the rough adjunct number, and we'll definitely be looking at that so that we don't overburden the teachers.
We would too, just along those lines, we would level up the training for all of our adjunct and our online teachers the same way, right? So in the past, one of the struggles we've had, and we learned this through the pandemic, is remember at the beginning, we were much more site-based, and we allowed teachers to build out their models on Canvas. So we were unified in Canvas and how we're training up on Canvas. But really, curriculum-wise, they could use a lot of different things. So with this model going forward, that training would and that curriculum would look the same. It would be the same across adjunct or our regular online independent teachers. So.
Okay, Mr. Wrigley and then Mrs. Oaks.
Okay, just to clarify, so Canyon's virtual high school basically is being decertified and taken down, or will
We would move it from high school to program.
Okay, for a high
Yes.
school to program status. Will we have the ability for people, and especially in the middle school and high school, to be online only and not be blended? Or will we have
They would still be
assigned to a school?
assigned to their resident or neighborhood school or whatever school that they were at, but for high school.
Uh-huh.
But 3 through 8, we would code assign to Canyons Online for 3 through 8.
Okay, so Canyon's online 3 through 8, and then, but for the other ones, it would be attached to the high school, and they could choose either to be virtual only. So there's basically 3 models that they could use. Virtual only in their high school, blended in their high school, or traditional
Yes.
in their high school. And this, for the next 2 to 3 years, would possibly help us in the traditional. It's going to take students out of the programs, which is going to lower the class size perhaps a little bit.
That are enrolled in CVHS that we would anticipate would continue. Students who are taking the courses for original credit to free up space
Yeah.
in their schedule, whether that's for additional courses that they want to take in person, for help, for work, for early graduation, for all different reasons that they want to free up their
Yeah.
schedule. So.
Okay. And in the future, if somebody wanted to come in from another district, they would have to basically permit into a high school?
Well,
Right now, they can apply, they can enroll.
through SEOP, we would still maintain as a provider, but we would have to code it to a different school number, which is that big a deal. But I mean, maybe it moves to Diamond Ridge or one of our high schools because we won't code it to CVHS, but to Diamond Ridge. Okay, so it's coded to Diamond Ridge right now. So we
Okay.
would remain as a provider, and outside students could enroll.
So this model is way better than the packets and whatever in the CVS.
Yeah.
But
this is-
the other question I had is, we've always had
step up.
parents say, for especially K through 3rd or through 6th or whatever, or maybe even high school, my kid's done, they've taken mastery in a matter of weeks. This will allow them now to go ahead and to move forward. It's sort of like the state test where they try to see how high you can go. This will allow our students to go higher and enrich themselves.
It would, but just let's clarify that. The grade, the change in grade versus accelerating within the curriculum are 2 different things. So if you recall
Yeah.
a few years back,
Yeah.
right, the law
Yeah.
changed Senator Osmond's bill. I think it was a parental rights bill that set out those parameters in statute. If you're planning to CLEP or skip a grade, there's that process. We're talking about within the curriculum during that given course, you have much greater flexibility.
Well,
to
because that's
accelerate.
been the major
Yeah.
thing I've heard from parents as we teach to the middle. And so this would allow us now to challenge those kids. They're a little bit beyond being, but still don't want to go to the next grade because they don't want to get outside their age group.
I think
So
that
that might
there's-
be very good because it'll allow us to then go ahead and say, you can challenge yourself. Because typically education's been to the middle, trying to get up to the middle, but everybody's above the middle, they have a problem. So this will allow us to do that.
I
for
see for
whatever.
those learners that this would be a tremendous advantage.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Oaks said Mr. Millerberg had a comment, so she'll let you go first.
You will defer, huh? Amber, I'm going to speak directly to you, and superintendent can listen, that's okay. I am excited about this. You know, for a little over a year now, we've been using the phrase that we need to reinvent education. And I think with the last 12 and a half months, we've been forced to reinvent education. And to me, it looks like you've taken some of the high points and eliminated the pitfalls because nobody knew what we were going into a year ago. and I look at this model and I see on a high school level, they have full access to what goes on at the school. If I want to do core classes online, I want to do electives at school, I want to play athletics, I want to do any of those things. I part of the high school, but I also have my flexibility to go do things on my own, and I can actually accelerate the pace. I can probably do more than sitting in a classroom. I love the model. I look at the middle school and even the elementary and what's available to where they can still access the bricks and mortar and have all the positive that comes out of that, but choose to do some of it, but not all of it online. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think it is a great idea. Um, is it perfect? Probably not. When you implement it, we'll find out for sure that it's not. But as we've seen in the last year, you'll fix it. You'll make it better. So I'm excited about the model.
Mrs. Oaks.
I feel comfortable with moving forward on this, particularly in light of the challenges that come with staffing and timing during school year, and that we don't have another board meeting until April 20th. So I would like to make a motion to approve the Canyons Online 2021-22 proposal. And there we go.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, a motion is in order because this is listed as a possible action. So thank you for the motion. And there is a second. And let me just check with Cindy. You got that. Okay, great. Thank you. Now, any discussion to the motion? Mrs. Schill.
A lot of people have said a lot of things, so I don't think I need to add anything, but I just want to say ditto to Mont, what Mont said. It's a rare occasion, so we should write that down.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion to the motion? I want to also say that I am excited and I'm very appreciative of the work that you've done just since our last board meeting. And thank you, board, for being willing to schedule this extra meeting. I think that time was well worth it, and this proposal is much improved. And I also want to say I appreciate the vision that this could really grow and expand, but also the restraint that we want to make sure that any growth is done properly and successfully. And it is a little bit reminiscent of the dual language immersion program. I believe the district started out with just one or two schools and kind of worked out some of that and then expanded it. And even in a time when we knew demand was high. And I think that I really appreciate that, as well as like the supplemental kindergarten program, how that happened. And so I thank you, Superintendent Amber, and your team. I know a lot of people have worked really hard, but I too am excited about this, and I hope that you will keep the board posted, right? Keep us posted along the way on how this is going. And I also appreciate the adjustment to the to how the selections will be made and information sent out to parents. So just one quick question. Is there, have you identified a time frame for when those parent information meetings would be held?
Yes, so Michelle has been working on those, and if I can just for a minute give a shout out to her. She unfortunately could not be here tonight, but she was just appointed earlier this month, and even though she's been coordinating the effort, it's been focused on the existing response. So she has been hyperdrive into realizing this vision and pulling this information. So the work behind both of these presentations, really the credit should be going to her. She's planning to hold those information nights the week after spring break and into the 2 weeks after spring break. So she has some tentative dates. Again, it was dependent upon what happened tonight that she was looking at getting those finalized. But very quickly, I guess is the short answer.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other discussion to the motion? Mrs. Nybauer.
I just wanted to say thank you. I apologize. I've had a rough week and did not see the awesome curriculum here that I'm really excited about. So that makes me even more excited. And I also wanted to reiterate that I am really grateful for all the work that you have spent. And this is really exciting.
Okay, there's no further discussion to the motion. We have a motion and a second, and I will ask for a vote. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. And we, like I said, we look forward to regular updates and seeing this additional pathway move forward.
Well, thank you for your support. We are excited. I think I'm next as well, so.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, next on the agenda is item 6C, Canyons Online and High School Credit Recovery Curriculum. This is a first reading, and Dr. Amber Roderick Landward, Director of ISD.
Thank you, President Teeny. So every November-ish, well, I shouldn't say every November, for the last 2 Novembers, we have been presenting a process that really thoroughly executes our curriculum policy, our policy on curriculum adoption, so that we can make sure that we are being transparent, being thoughtful, and really planning ahead for the sake of budgets, teachers, implementation, and all of those pieces. At times, as we are learning, that timeline doesn't always work for some of the needs that arise in terms of curriculum. So with the Canyons Online program now being approved, we have identified a need if we were going to truly take this program from CVHS to an innovative program to sustain the future based on what we've learned from our pandemic experience. We knew that we needed to consider a curriculum that would match that level of innovation and grow with us into the future. So we have proceeded with the curriculum policy to adopt additional curriculum for the Canyons Online program. And this is the part that's really interesting. In traditional curriculum adoptions, it's for a content area or a course or a grade level even. And with a online program, we are talking one curriculum that supports dozens and dozens of courses. So it makes the process interesting in terms of bringing together lots of teacher voices to really try to dive in and understand so that we can look at the program from all content area perspectives, recognizing that not one curriculum program is going to be perfect. So this whole curriculum is a little bit unique in comparison to the curricula that we've brought to you in the past. The process has begun in the similar way that we have other curriculum processes. I just want to highlight that one of the differences in this process is because it was covering so many content areas, we did not have every single teacher who may be teaching the program involved in the committee like we like to do for the other types of adoption, because we don't know who our teachers are yet. So we did our best to pull teachers who have been teaching online and then our experts in content as well. We did have to rely a lot on our content experts because they had the time to dig in and could give that broader perspective, as well as reaching out to other programs and administrators who have used these curricula in the past. So I just want to be really transparent about that because it is different given the uniqueness of this particular curricula. So what you have in the memo that was posted on board docs is just a reminder of what that process looks like. And then it links you to the curriculum checklist that we have standardized for all curricula adoption processes and all of the documentation that supports all of those steps that we take in the process. You also have a link to an overview that gives you a preview and the recommendations that we plan to make. And those recommendations for the digital curriculum for Canyons Online are that we adopt both Arizona State University Prep Digital, or ASU PD, as well as Edmentum. These two programs will support the innovative vision that we have for Canyons Online, as well as support us with developing better protocols to support targeted credit recovery at the school level, with much more alignment and that seamless support for our students. So we're really excited about the rigor and the types of courses as well as experiences that our students will be able to have using these curricula, particularly when you pair it with the teachers that we are hiring and the professional learning that we will be able to provide in conjunction with these partners. Because this is a first reading, with the curriculum adoption, I typically just leave it to you to peruse on for the next couple of weeks, unless there are things that you already know that you want us to start preparing or gathering information on for the next meeting. And certainly you can call me anytime over the next couple of weeks before our next meeting to gather that information for you.
Okay, board, any requests for additional information or questions on this? It is a first reading, and so it will come back at the next meeting, which is April 20th.
Correct.
And usually part of the process is
I'll share anything.
making the public aware of how they can access and preview this information. So do you want to just speak a little more specific
Yes.
on that part of the
Thanks, Nancy.
process?
I appreciate that reminder. So yes, we will make previews available. Again, because this curricula is so unique in comparison to others, we can't get access codes to every single course for every single patron. So you'll notice in the memo, there were some links to specific overviews. We have worked with both vendors, and particularly, well, for both of them, we can get you as individual board members, if you want to go a little bit deeper, we can get you some access codes, but we can't get them for the entire public, unfortunately. So Michelle has worked extensively with both the folks at ASU PD and Edmentum, and has, I'm amazed at what she has come to learn about both of those programs in such a short period of time. And so she's certainly willing to address any phone questions that patrons have. She can walk them through, set them up with appointments. We've got lots of options still, but those overview exploration videos, I think, are also a pretty good insight as to what parents can expect from all of the courses.
Mr. Wrigley.
Just really quickly for next one. So at this point, the textbooks, we would no longer have textbooks cost for this agenda. That would be
Correct.
it. The other one is, how does this cross connect with our current curriculum? Is it about the same? Does it cover the same stuff? Maybe talk about that. And
Really good question. So
and then how does this curriculum tie in with the states? I assume it's all within this thing, but how does it meets all the criteria for the state assessment too? The state curriculum.
it does. So as with any curricula that we adopt for any subject, that's where the alignment and the work of the curriculum department comes in to look at where it aligns to the state and then organize the scope and sequence in tandem, or I should say in parallel to what we have in the school. So for example, with the ELA, say 9th grade course, it's aligned to the Common Core state standards in both programs. And so what our team, Michelle's team, would do is look at the current curriculum scope and sequence, reorganize it so that it matches the scope and sequence that is being taught in person. So that, again, students who are wishing to accelerate and they want to take, the first 2 quarters online to free up their schedule, they're being taught the same 2 standards in their online course, or the same 2 quarters of standards in their online course that they would have gotten in person. The curricula obviously is different, but the standards and the scope and sequence are aligned, and we'll be doing that work once the curriculum is adopted, if it's adopted, I should say.
Thank you. Any other questions or requests for information?
Can just email us.
Yep. Yes. Feel free to reach out if you have some questions, and we will look forward to the report back.
And I'll plan on bringing any feedback that we
Right.
get
From the public after they've
to the April
had an
20th meeting.
opportunity to review. All right.
Okay.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for your time.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is item 6D, high school social emotional learning curriculum. This also is a first reading, and I'll turn the time over to BJ Weller, Director of Responsive Services.
Well, good evening. Thank you for allowing this agenda item to be included in tonight's. As we've been talking through the emotional challenges from the pandemic and looking at our short-term and long-term planning, I feel like this is a little bit of a repeat from a few years ago when we were talking about social emotional learning curriculum and you approved the second step curriculum to be taught in the elementary and middle schools. Next year will be the third and final phase for all elementary and middle schools to start implementing or to continue implementing the second step program. We've had a lot of great feedback from both parents, teachers, and students on the second step curriculum. Many of the social workers and teachers who have been supporting that have been really impressed with the information, what's been laid out. But we know that we've had a gap in what we've been able to offer. And the high school curriculum, we were not yet ready at that time to adopt something K-12. We are now at that point. We're meeting with the high school principals. Each of them have dedicated time in their schedules next year, either through an advisory or dedicated time for a social emotional learning curriculum to be taught. This would be really helpful as we come back to start that tier 1 support. We're really good at the tier 3 and tier 2 in some of those cases, but without that foundational tier 1, we'll always be in crisis mode. We need to really take a step back and look at what we're doing tier 1. It will also fit nicely in with the Portrait of a Graduate initiative and goals with wellness and social skills, right? The emotional and soft skills that they need. So when we looked at this curriculum adoption, maybe a little bit different from what Amber just presented, we were not able to do the same type of process because there really isn't any other curriculum that ties directly to the second step for a high school curriculum that also aligns with the CASEL standards that we followed with the first process. So I know that this is a first reading. We have given access to all of the high school principals plus another 2 staff members in their schools to review the curriculum. The School Connect program is sending us a binder. I was hoping to have it here tonight, but it hasn't arrived yet. That will be available for anybody to preview. We will work with communications to put the curriculum online. There are some sample lessons that's also linked in the document that you have on board docs, but they're really well thought through. There are about 20 lessons for each grade. There are 4 different modules. It is a one-time cost, which is nice that we won't have an annual subscription fee. The one component that is new for School Connect that we'll be looking at this year is the EQ and Home Connect. That is the digital response for families to access kind of in addition to what we're already providing through the curriculum at the school. So with that, what questions do you have for me?
Thank you. Board questions, Mr. Wrigley?
Yeah, I was really excited about this, and just to let you know, I shared this with my wife. You got the Carrie Wrigley sign of approval. I know how
Oh,
she's
sweet.
been coming after you for 3 years now,
She
so you'll
has,
get her off
yes.
your back.
Oh,
No, the curriculum
you.
was great. One of the things you didn't talk about is how it's going to be implemented, and to be sort of a
This will be taught in
advisory class or
advisory
another
classroom.
option.
Yep.
And so the only thing I would have in that, and I guess as you talk with your principals, I've taught at several different schools that have advisory. It's a waste of time. So hopefully we'd be able to emphasize that this is the programs to be taught during that, and it will be taught and everybody be held accountable for it. Because a lot of them have good intents with the advisory period, and it's just 20 minutes or 30 minutes of sitting there and seat time.
Part of the initial training with our staff will be on the importance of relationships, making sure that every student has a positive adult at school that they can go to, and that will be connected to the advisory. So our vision with that advisory is that it won't be just a free-for-all class, read a book silently, catch up on homework. It'll be very purposeful and time well spent. Thank you.
Other
Tell Mr.
comments,
Bigwood thank
Mrs.
you.
Schill?
So I just want to tell you thank you, and I'm really excited about this. I really think this is needed, and just like you said, this is probably the perfect timing to start this because I think it's a really big need in our schools. So thank you so much for your work on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Mrs. Oaks?
Okay, so you know I'm a huge supporter of mental health, so it will surprise you. I'm pushing back a little bit right now. One of the questions or complaints I've gotten from some teachers at the middle school level in particular, I don't hear it as much from elementary, is that this is one more thing to add to our plate. And also the question, and I think it's a valid one, of can't we address social and emotional learning through other means and ways that are more integrated, whether it's through the arts or through physical fitness, through different ways that can still reach children on an emotional level. So I'm curious what kind of burden this is giving our teachers. The other question I have that's related to that is when we talk about advisory period, it sounds like we have high school principals talking about different schedules. And I'm assuming part of that has evolved in part out of what's happened this year with the 4-day schedule and how they've gotten a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be able to effectively collaborate. So my question is probably more for Rick, and that is, are we looking at some of these high schools having the opportunity for their teachers to have collaboration time during that advisory period? I mean, who's carrying the burden of teaching not second step, but School to Connect? And how is some of that going to work? And also just my final comment is I feel like this is something that would be a great conversation in the larger discussion we're going to be having about the whole child as far as our larger strategy as a district moving forward. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And I love those questions. I'm glad you're pushing back a little bit. Because I think one of the things I've tried to do when we rolled this out to begin with is help our teachers understand that second step, School Connect, that does not equal social emotional learning. That is a tool to help us accomplish social emotional learning. And the only way to really truly integrate social emotional learning is to not have it be a standalone program, but to have all teachers speak the same language, have all students understand the same language from kindergarten all the way through their senior year. And I think that the art teacher or arts can take social emotional learning and they can mold it this way. And I think your academic teachers can take social emotional learning and mold it this way, but all of it has to be integrated together. It really cannot be a standalone program, because then it's just another check mark, right? It really truly does not become part of the whole child initiative. And then the other component would just be the training that is provided to the teachers, helping them understand what social emotional learning is. We have a PlayWorks coach right now who is doing a research project on teachers who have been implementing the second step curriculum. And those who have not been implementing the second step curriculum and just kind of their own emotional well-being. And it's fascinating because she is finding that teachers who are implementing it consistently have a stronger sense of emotional well-being through the pandemic than those who are not. And it's because they're constantly looking and reading and engaging in social emotional learning conversations with their students, which naturally benefit themselves versus somebody who is only teaching the traditional content. So the training is provided. It's not difficult to implement. And when we have given the teachers time and permission in their schedule, in the curriculum map, that was the initial barrier. They just didn't know how to do that with the competing time. The teachers that we have talked with have not felt like this is just one more thing. They felt like it has enriched the conversations that they've been able to have with their students. I remember one specific, and I think Amber, you were there at Butler Middle School. The science teacher who was implementing it saying, I've never been able to connect with my students like this ever until we started implementing second step. And that was such a powerful moment for me. And that same conversation has been repeated multiple times by different teachers.
So I feel like I understand the model. And by the way, I have heard some wonderful things. I was just at an SEC meeting for Sprucewood Elementary this week, and they were sharing some specifics about how it's helped some of their students that have been in distress. And their BTS teacher there, who's phenomenal, is going to incorporate some art projects that incorporate the second step principles that the kids have been learning, which I think will be really powerful. I'm familiar with the elementary model, the middle school model. I'm curious about how the high school model is going to work logistically on a day-to-day or weekly basis.
It'll follow the same thing as what the middle school is doing as far as logistics.
Mrs. Nybar?
Just a few comments. I'm really, really excited about this. At Draper Park Middle School, there have been teachers on the school community council sharing similar what you said. They've never been able to connect with their students this way. Their classroom environment and climate has been so much stronger, and they feel like there's just greater levels of trust with the classmates, which I thought was quite significant. I love, and I'm borrowing this from Steve. Steve's a great highlighter. He always highlights the most important things. But if you look at this, being aware of our emotions, managing our emotions, recognizing the power of thought, coping with stress, inducing positive emotions, appreciating diversity, responding to conflict. These are absolutely things that we need to be talking about in our schools. And I think now is the time, and I'm really grateful for all the effort that has been put into this and really excited for this program to roll out for all students.
I think it's going to have a really positive impact on the school climates for sure.
Okay, any other comments? Mr. Wrigley?
As I saw this, it was elated, mostly because in practice this year, most of the practice nowadays is young kids and college kids coming in with emotional issues. So this is going to really meet that. It sounds like it meets the requirements that we have by the state to put something together. So it's going to kill one bullet's going to shoot many different things, hopefully, and accomplish many different things. So I'm excited about seeing this. And our biggest thing was the tsunami of mental health this year, not the tsunami of COVID in our schools. Yeah. And this will address that tsunami of mental health that's going to hit next year with the post-PTSD.
It will definitely help in that process. I don't think it will solve everything, but it will definitely give us the foundation to build upon.
Okay, this is also for first reading, so we'll look forward to having you come back. And then I didn't, and maybe I was distracted, but did you talk about how the public could access some of the overview?
Yeah, so we're going to work with communications to get that information on the website. We'll also have a binder in our department if anybody wants to physically look at it. But the information online will include sample lessons that they can preview.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And that information will be sent out that it's available.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. We look forward to seeing you again then on the 20th of April. Thank you. Okay, board, that concludes our business items for the meeting. And next would be superintendent report and then business administrator report.
Thank you, President Tini. I'll conclude my comments as brief as possible. Just want to update the board on our COVID response plan. As you know, a few things have changed since the legislative session. And I want to read, before I read the statement, we know from the session under House Bill 294 that the mask mandate in most places in our state will be lifted April the 10th. But I want to read this statement because, and for the record, because schools are excluded from that. And I think there's still some confusion out there that that does include schools. It does not. So this is directly from Utah Department of Health. While House Bill 294 ends the statewide mask requirement in most places on April 10th, the K-12 school mask requirement ends on June 15th. Local officials like a school board or county council do not have legal authority to end the school mask requirements before June 15th. Vaccination is not a condition of mask requirements in schools, meaning vaccinated teachers and students must still continue to wear a mask while at school, on school property, or riding a school bus. On April 10th, the statewide mask requirements end for most public places. The mask requirements for K-12 schools remain in place until June 15th, Utah Department of Health. So I just wanted to get that on the record. I know our communications department has been messaging that out to our parents and to our students and the public. And I would just ask our parents and the public to continue to remain vigilant. Our numbers really are still continue to look great, although in the last 2 weeks, we've had a slight uptick, and I mean slight. Most of our our highest positive case rates are in our high schools, as they've been all year, but we're talking 10, 11 cases, and they've been pretty consistent. So we're not seeing any of those spikes that we did early on. Also in that bill, you might recall the thresholds to potentially move schools to the test to stay protocol went from 1% to 2%, and schools that are 1,500 or less would move to 30 cases. So we're far from any of those benchmarks. So knock on wood, but I'm very confident that we will not utilize test to stay the rest of the school year, which would be fantastic. I was just looking through to see if there were other changes. It's still in effect for one-time events. You're only required to do one test to play or participate for one extracurricular activity like a dance, which that's been our practice within 48 hours. So also a couple of other things that are happening. There is our understanding from the different agencies, there's no longer a 25% threshold for indoor or outdoors. And as you know, we were looking toward potentially reserving the Maverick Center for graduation ceremonies because of the agreement with the health department for testing. Maverick Center is not able to meet that reservation. So we'll go forward as planned at this point, but we'll continue to monitor that. Other questions have been around field trips, field days, pool days, a lot of different activities that are coming up in the spring. I would recommend as of today that those remain suspended, and just pending the environment as we get closer. I do think things will change and we'll be able to open up and do more and more of those activities, but we remain with our current plan. And then in our last meeting, just an update from County Health. County Health is asking us to prepare for the potential possibility to vaccinate 16 to 18-year-olds. County Health believes that there will be Pfizer vaccines available the last week in April for the 16 to 18-year-old population. So we're putting those plans into works. We have not confirmed that yet with County Health Department, but if anyone in the state can run a clinic like the way it's supposed to be done, it's Canyons. So we will be ready and willing to handle that clinic if those vaccinations arrive and we're able to do that. Questions on that? I know that's a lot right now to digest on our COVID response.
No, you did a good job.
Okay. With that, just again, thank you for all of your work. And I just want to mention too, I had the opportunity, Susan introduced me to one of our former alum, Dan Jorgensen, a longtime supporter of Jordan High School and former student body president, as well as I think his dad and maybe an uncle. He's moved away since, been many years since he's lived here, still contributes to a scholarship fund at Jordan High. But I got to meet him. He still supports our foundation and was just so proud of Canyon School District. And he wanted me to share that with you, is that he looks on those memories with fondness, and his family. And apparently they were the original owners where Jordan High actually sits. He told me about the original selling price for that property, and then the next time that it sold, he said his dad's grave markers tilted one way because he found out how much that was. But he's so proud of being, Jordan High, and just, being a beet digger. That's a really big deal to he and his family. And I told him, once a beet digger, always a beet digger. So a lot to be proud of there, but it was really great to connect with him and just get to hear the history that he knows about Jordan High and Canyon School District. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox?
Cindy is also cheering, once a beet digger, always a beet digger. So just as you know, last night and tonight we had our groundbreakings for the 2 new schools, Glacier Hills, Peruvian Park. Big thank you to Kirsten and Jeff for organizing those. They were great. Great job by Steve for conducting those. Just a quick oversight. We are moving, not an oversight, but an overview, I should say. We are moving. I want to make that. Yeah. We're going to have to postpone construction. No, we're moving ahead. The schools will be moving down starting Friday. So we'll be moving out Peruvian Park Friday and Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday we'll be moving out Edgemont. The schools went down on a field trip. We are allowed one field trip, and that was to take those kids down to see the new classrooms and the new building. So Peruvian Park went down today. Edgemont is going down tomorrow. So these kids are going to be really cool because they're going to a middle school. This is obviously something we have not done before in our history. We've moved schools out, but we've never moved 2 schools into one building. So we're excited for that. So a big thank you to the 2 principals, Leslie Jukes, Michelle Snar, for organizing this. And they've spent countless hours at the new building, getting that ready. Big thanks to Gary Hansen. We've mentioned him tonight on getting the orchestrating the moves, and for Rick Conger's team, getting that new building ready. So again, I want to emphasize that Monday, so tomorrow is the last day in these buildings. That will be the last school day. Monday, the 12th, the board approved a virtual day because that will give the teachers time to set up the furniture and organize the desks down there. So Tuesday, the 13th is the first time both these schools will be in person there for the last 7 weeks of this school year, and of course all of next school year. So we plan to have a group of us down there on the 13th. Welcome any board members who would like to come down either the 13th or shortly thereafter to see 2 schools in one building operating there. So we're excited to see how this goes. So again, big thank you to them, and big thank you to all those who helped with the groundbreaking. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, board, there's opportunity if you have some comments that you'd like to make. I'll invite Mrs. Nybauer first, and we'll.
I had the pleasure of visiting some of our schools with Dr. Robbins and Leon Wilcox. That was wonderful. It was really exciting to see such effective and excellent teaching. We went into some classrooms. I was specifically, I was impressed with a Draper Park Middle School teacher that had the kids engaged online, and she was narrating and asking questions, and it was hands-on with technology. That was really cool to see. We saw molecules built out of marshmallows and pipe cleaner in another classroom, and an excellent Oak Hollow DLI teacher who during transition time with her kids had a video playing, and they were doing this little dance while they were cleaning up around their desk. And it was just so awesome to see that. It's so great to go and visit schools. We visited Willow Springs as well and saw some wonderful things happening there too with some special ed and smaller classrooms. So it's wonderful to have that opportunity and be reminded the why of why we do what we do and the time that we spend. And so really appreciated that. Appreciate all of you and all of the great work for this meeting, and that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley?
You know, I told my wife before I left, this is probably one of the best days I've had on the board. When we had last 2 days, we've set 2 different schools, brand new 2 different schools. And I saw the agenda on this, was in the process of helping develop it, but it wasn't until the day I looked and go, wow, this is amazing agenda, you know. And as I said earlier, I'm so glad that we're moving to social emotional. That will cause domestic harmony in our home. The only other issue I have is the privacy of the urinals at Jordan High School. My son keeps on asking me about. So Leon, you still have to come up with that. So anyway, this is great. Thank you so much. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Mrs. Oakes?
Yeah, I've already briefly mentioned the time I got to spend with Sprucewood Elementary, and that was fantastic. I have not spent nearly as much time as I would have liked to with Principal Skino, but she was phenomenal, and I was so impressed by that school community and where they're headed. We have some amazing administrators in this district who have been trained and really strongly believe passionately in the importance of using data to really inform our practice and to improve. And I'm seeing amazing things happen. I want to express again my appreciation to be able to participate on the RFP group for the strategic vision consultant selection. That was awesome. I gained a whole new appreciation for Gary Hansen and the work that he does for our district. He's very professional. I loved being able to attend yesterday's groundbreaking for Peruvian Park. That community is so excited. You would not have guessed that they're about to start attending school over at Crescent View. There was no complaining. You can tell that they are really looking forward to that new school. And I also wanted to mention the Point Working Group. I've had the last couple of weeks, there have been different meetings, both with the working group itself, and also we finally got a meeting with the new design firm, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, to discuss Canyon School District and who we are, that the property really does fall directly in our boundaries, and what does that mean? And it was a good conversation, and one that I hope to see continue to move forward. And we're interested in starting to make connections with higher ed, and so that's kind of the next plan moving forward. So if any of you guys have questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to update you on that.
Thank you. Mrs. Schill?
I'm going to pass tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Millerberg?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I had a chance this week also to walk through Hillcrest, and every time I walk through the new construction, I get more and more excited for next fall. And I looked at that and I thought, I sure hope they get there by August 5th because there's so much left to do. I also should probably admit that I invaded, I don't know if it's your school or your school, I invaded Brookwood Elementary yesterday. And it just amazes me, parents in our communities and what they do. They have a lady that comes in and teaches what they call Math Olympiad at Brookwood. And I've been working with my grandson through the school year on the problems, and it makes me think those are problems that are not hard math problems, but they are difficult reasoning problems. And to see 4th and 5th graders in that program go through the critical thinking process of problem solving is just amazing. And so that was a lot of fun for me to go sit in on that class and just observe what was going on. So, you know, other than that, it hasn't been that long since we got together, so I don't have much to say.
Thank you. And I just wanted to make mention of how nice it's been yesterday and today and tonight's meeting to start looking forward and in very proactive ways through many of the things that we've discussed today and through the groundbreakings and yeah, to be proactive and shift a little bit away from all the reaction that we've had to deal with and face this last 12, 13 months. So anyway, and again, I want to thank the board, thank the administration for all the extra work and appreciate the patience and the diligence which people approach their jobs and their responsibilities with the district. And so with that, unless there's anything else, anyone, I will call the meeting adjourned and wish you all the rest of a really good night, evening.